Very good. And now, we come to the interview portion of the show where I have to really pay attention. I'm beyond thrilled to welcome this young man up onto the stage. He is an educator, he is an author, he is a thinker, he is a doer, and he's about as Chicago gets. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for KEVIN COVAL. KEVIN! KEVIN! Hello, my man. Thank you for joining me. Have a seat, man. I hope you don't mind. I have an old style. You know, it's nice Chicago brew.
No, it's delicious. It's good.
I'm not from here. I'm compensating. I might be overcompensating.
You told me you're from
Buffalo, New York, originally.
That we share many things.
You know, seriously, thanks for being here. This is amazing. You are on a roll with the book.
Pat, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Off mic. Oh, Mr.
Are you being serious?
No.
Okay. That's good. Oh, that, we're looking for a sponsorship from Jameson, so flash that as much as you want. I don't want to get in trouble with Michael DeVille, but I'm going to put his tape right here. Not bad, that Michael DeVille.
Just 30 more seconds and we'll have it ready. Sorry, Pat.
That's okay. I mean, I can even, like, keep talking, too. Oh, wait. I'm going to give away another one of these awesome books. Is that okay? I keep giving them away, and I feel like publishing is not a nonprofit business.
Books are like a flyer at this point.
Okay, it's more about advertisement. This one goes to Jared for using the hashtag. Jared. No biggie. We are on Friendster. Check us out. You know, it's live TV. It's live Facebook TV anyway. So KEVIN. You know, there's a show going on in here right now.
Oh my God.
This isn't my set, by the way. No, I am done with school forever. But this set actually belongs to Blood at the Root, which is a show. So you've seen it.
I just saw it, and
What do you think? Probably not really your thing.
yeah, no, I mean, I might have cried maybe. I mean, allegedly.
Right.
You know.
We weren't filming that.
Good. It was the cast, the writing, the direction. I don't see a ton of theater because I feel like a lot of it isn't necessarily for me, and by that I mean it's corny. And that was one of like the best cultural productions that the city has seen. I mean, that was so good. It was so good, and it was so real, and I mean, you know, a lot of those folks, you know, I've seen before, either in Louder Than a Bomb or in Idris Goodwin's How He Got On, and yeah, I mean, like I told Vic, you know, when his just the way he handled getting free at the end. I don't know if you guys have seen, you know, and I guess I think that, you know, the folks around him supporting him, you know, clapping him towards getting free. You know, I thought was also like, obviously like a metaphor and shit, but I mean, it was dope. Yeah, it was dope.
I'm an actor. It's almost always never a metaphor.
Okay, all right, yeah.
It means exactly what it is. Sometimes a pipe is just a pipe, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Hey, I mean, Mike's working, so I mean, you know, now.
We're live. We're
hey,
back.
KEVIN, thank you for being here.
Oh my God, thank you.
It's really cool to have you. The book is called A People's History of Chicago. You know, there's other books on history. I'm not, it's not a criticism.
It's not the first.
I just, so what's the difference? This is a people's history, and then I feel like there are other books that are like history for like inanimate objects or like animals. Why this book, and why now? Is that good or what? Shout out to Trevor Noah.
You're much more handsome.
You're all right. You can stay. This would intimidate the hell out of the Daily Show staff, by the way. They don't have old style out there. Okay, enough. I'm overcompensating again. But really, though, there are plenty of books out there about Chicago history, which is a fascinating history, by the way. I mean, this town is chock full of amazing firsts. I think the thing that I always think about is that when people first started coming out here and building here, this was the frontier. Like, west of here was nothing. And so it was a very new place. It was full of a lot of energy and people who were going to innovate and really strive for things. But again, well-documented history. So what were you trying to do different from that with this one?
Well, even that narrative, like, there was a lot of people here. They were indigenous folks who white people kicked off the land and killed, and so yeah.
Do you have that whiskey?
And and that, you're right though. That kind of genocide is very inventive. I mean,
We'll be right back. No, but I mean, that's real.
Yeah.
When you go to DuSable Bridge, which is probably one of the only things named after Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable, the first resident of the city of Chicago, a Haitian French fur trader. Not a lot of things named after him. His memory is not kept alive very well. And even separate from that, the intersection of Wacker and Michigan, now I'm just showing off, is where Fort Dearborn was. I mean, anyone who lives here has probably heard of Fort Dearborn. It was, in a proud American tradition of building military bases in places we wanted to own. So what went along with that? It was crowding out the people who lived here originally. Yeah. And we've talked about this. We've talked about the fact that Chicago is derived from a word that is a Native American word, and we just appropriated the hell out of that. Thanks very much. This is ours. Bye.
So the reason why I wrote this book is because the book I'm writing now is about gentrification, and I'm looking at I moved back to Chicago into Wicker Park in the 90s, and I saw that community change fairly rapidly. I mean, I moved into a predominantly, Mexican working class community. I was the first white person on my block, and after me ushered all sorts of radical shifts in that neighborhood. And I was thinking then also about my parents who moved to a neighborhood called Newtown, which is now East Lakeview, which was predominantly black and Puerto Rican, which is one of the bastions of where the Young Lords were organizing from. And after they came, it was also a radically different neighborhood. Now, we know it to be, Fraternity Row or Wrigleyville or whatever.
Sounds like a retirement home.
Yeah, it is, right.
Lakeview.
But what I started to do was, when I was analyzing, like, what are some of the historical causes of gentrification, I just started to write all of these historic poems and going back and trying to analyze. And of course, there's no better place to look. I mean, that's why even the title of the play that we're on the stage of is so powerful, is that there's blood on this land and there's blood in our history. And part of what I found fascinating is that from the very beginning we've been gentrifying this land. We've been erasing working people from the place that they've lived for generations. And so I think that there's something significant then about, I'm a student of history, I'm a nerd of history, and so if we don't know those stories, then we're going to continue to repeat them ad nauseum.
Nerd.
Yeah.
No, it's true. You can't. You've mentioned this, that the idea behind the book being, we're going to repeat the mistakes if we don't know we're repeating the mistakes. And the only way to learn and learn from that experience and from your mistake is to go back and examine it. Might be a little uncomfortable, but I just think it goes with the territory, does it not?
Well, and I mean, we need to be uncomfortable. I mean, if we're not uncomfortable in this moment, then we're okay with what we deem normal. And what is normal in this moment is a constant dehumanization of many kinds of people. What is normal is a perpetual war and bombing and eradication of brown communities around the planet. What is normal is a grand inequity of wealth when it comes to race, when it comes to gender, when it comes to an alarming murdering of black trans people. I mean, that's normal. And so I feel like if we're cool with what is, then we should definitely be made uncomfortable, in order to shift our perspective to counter that normalcy, I would say.
Indeed, uncomfortability is a good sign because it shows that you are not comfortable with the way things are going. You recognize that it is bad, and then you get a chance to change it,
shift,
to
right.
really
That's what happens.
do
Like,
something
shit.
and be like,
Damn.
whoa,
It's fucking hot in here. Yeah. Right, exactly.
Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
And one example, and out of many, and I mean, it's 77 poems. It's not, a history book in 1642, da-da-da-da-da. Beautiful illustrations throughout. Yeah. Obviously, beautiful poems.
Yeah, there's six different illustrators from Chicago, provided 3 illustrations for the book, and they really made that shit come alive. I mean, really.
Hebrew Brantley, one
Hebrew
of them?
Brantley, that's Hebrew's homie, Troy Scott, who's a former Louder Than a Bomb student from Kenwood. One of my former students at UIC, a woman named Runzi, Bianca Pastel, who's also one of Hebrew's peoples, Max Sansing, who's one of my favorite street artists in Chicago, and my guy Paul Branton as well, they all provided illustrations for the book.
If I forget, don't let me to loop back to graffiti.
Okay.
But what you were just saying about the book, who wrote the foreword again?
Chancellor Bennett.
Oh, Chancellor Bennett.
Yeah.
It means something to somebody. I'm not familiar with that. But you have a lot of overlap with students who have used Louder Than a Bomb, young Chicago authors, which you got into at a very young age. I mean, you started teaching at the age of 21, and you stuck with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked John Cohen, our box office guy. He's a member of the Chicago Teachers Union here in town.
Who we love and support.
Absolutely.
And want them to constantly win. Yeah. And thank you for that work.
The only thing I can equate with John is that it feels so good once you stop beating your head against the wall as a teacher. And I don't mean that in terms of the profession of like the idea of why you teach, but as the adversity that you face as a teacher. There's a shortage of resources here. You've talked openly about the Chicago public schools, and I'm attempting here to bridge a gap between the work you're doing as a teacher in terms of writing and empowering kids to write, and what that does for them. And at the same time, we have an inequity in our public schools and elsewhere in terms of focusing on that as a thing that can be effective in empowering these kids. Do you see that, or am I just way off?
No. I think like young people are mad empowered, and I really don't do shit other than try to, create a space where I can listen. I think that we are in a moment of radical unlistening as a culture.
Nuh-uh. That's not true. So anyway.
Yeah.
Let's talk about you. How do you like my tie?
It's all right.
No, you're creating a culture of listening.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like young people are super hip and super progressive. One of my favorite things of the Seder, of the Passover Seder, is they say each generation will reveal new freedoms. And so inevitably, like as older folk, you have to really shut the fuck up and listen to what young people are saying, because young people will push you to be better, And so like I have a great gig, which is constantly being around young geniuses who will tell you about your shit, who have an incredibly democratic, radical vision of equity of how the city could continue to live into the future, and who are incredibly gifted with the pen. You know what I mean? These are genius-ass storytellers who are changing the way that the world listens. I mean, we're in this moment of cultural renaissance in the city of Chicago because young people have taken democratized tools of technology into their own hands to find an audience around the globe. And these are folks who are 14 to 27 who are creating the best shit in the world right now, you know, in the city, you know? And I think that has to do with, you know, their own ingenuity, their own genius, their own desire to be heard. And because they constantly see on a regular basis that their lives are consistently criminalized into every institution that they step in. And so they are reflecting and resisting that dehumanization and criminalization. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I tuned out. No,
That's good.
No. You know, not only does writing and, you know, you've talked about hip hop specifically, but I think writing in general and poetry and spoken word and all these kinds of things empower not just the kids either, not just the youth, right? But in a way that can give them the tools to express themselves. And again, without the resources to really fund this through schools, it's kind of tough to get that out there. But I mean, Louder Than a Bomb is in 17 cities throughout the country. Yeah. But here locally, you know, there are groups of youth like Asada's Daughters and like BYP 100 that are having very big impacts civically. I think you've attributed the election of Kim Foxx and the ousting of Anita Alvarez to these young groups that are not plugged into, you know, they don't have a talk show on Facebook, like, which is so effective. But they are organized, yeah, and they feel powerful, and they don't adhere to the narrative that maybe is more prevalent throughout the city.
And what an incredible city to organize in. You know, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I wanted to write the book is because, particularly in this moment, I wanted to remind us of our tradition of organizing and winning. You know, I think that we don't always remember that this is a city where working people have fought for everything that we've gotten. I mean, it wasn't just handed to us that we were going to get an 8-hour workday. People fought and died for the right to work only 8 hours. You know, people fought and died for child labor laws in this city. I mean, through this city, you know, you have the incredible vision of Chairman Fred Hampton, who was murdered and assassinated by, CPD and the FBI at 21 for having this vision, right? Fred Hampton talked about the Real Rainbow Coalition, a solidarity organization between the Black Panthers, the Young Lords, primarily Puerto Rican folks who were organizing similarly to the Black Panthers, and the Young Patriots, a group of progressive Appalachian white folks in Uptown. And once he started to bring those folks together to have this kind of working class interracial solidarity, that's when they were like, hell no, like that, absolutely not. What scares the center the most is when working people come together despite via their class solidarity as opposed to their racial solidarity. And so I think that that's ultimately one of the things that I also wanted to talk about in the book, is that people have organized and fought very hard in the city to resist, to contend the dominant stronghold of the capitalist center, and have won. And I think working people are continuing to win in this moment. Asada's Daughters, BYP 100, the Let Us Breathe Collective. I think if you want to follow, what has been the progressive, trend in this city and the country, just look at what, Black women are doing, and then you'll then see and get a vision of what the future is, So yeah, I think that's dope.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Pretty dope. I think it's dope.
Yeah.
By the way, happy Loyalty Day. I'm sorry I didn't. Did we all hear about Loyalty Day? Loyalty Day. No, they changed it. Loyalty Day is what our president, Donald Trump, has named May 1st. So it used to be May Day or, Workers' Rights Day or something like that. And they changed it to Loyalty Day. And the background of Loyalty Day, real quick, started in the 1950s as a way to, counter the Red Scare, if you will. And so if you weren't loyal to the country, didn't celebrate, maybe you belong on a list somewhere. What a coincidence it happens to be on May Day. So, yeah, happy Loyalty Day, Kev. How you been, man? How was your Loyalty Day? Did you have a barbecue? What'd you do? Come on, lay it on me.
You know what story I read that I loved recently is that Colin Kaepernick came with a bus of suits for men who were just getting out of prison in New York. Yeah. You saw that shit? Like that was, yeah. I'm like, yo, my G, you are a superhero for real. That's like what a superhero does. You just swoop in with like, nah, everybody gets sued. He was like Oprah with the, you know what I mean? And I think I read that like on May Day,
I feel like you're dodging my Loyalty Day.
Oh, yeah, sorry, bro. It was cool.
It was cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was May in Chicago. No, I mean, people were out. People were out. I mean, you got a glimpse of what it means when people really organize. And I think we organize in a tradition in the city that is unparalleled. We organize in the tradition of Ida B. Wells. We organize in the tradition of Saul Alinsky. We organize in the tradition of Harold Washington. Harold Washington used Fred Hampton's campaign strategy to get elected. And people. I know a lot of people. I mean, Rudy Lozano, and I know Rudy's family very well. I was just with Rudy Jr. the other day. Rudy Lozano Sr. was assassinated for trying to organize the tortilla workers in Pilsen. And he was also charged via Harold Washington with bringing blacks and Latinos together. And that's when people were like, no, that freaks people out. And so we organized in a tradition of people who have been taken to task for bringing people together to resist that dominant narrative, the dominant history, and the dominant way of doing business. And to me, that's like how you turn up for May Day.
And so this is, yes. You talk about Haymarket, if I'm not mistaken, which is also, there's a monument to it downtown. But you say dominant narrative, and so this clearly is not. Are you omitting anything? How do you write something that is not the dominant narrative?
Yeah,
are you discovering things that aren't widely known or publicized, or how does that work?
Well, I try to put on for cultural figures and moments that I am particularly interested in. There's also only 77 poems, and it's from my vantage point. I'm a heterosexual white male, and so I have giant gaps and blind spots, and I can only tell the story that I see. And so part of the work that I'm doing over the course of this year is to also do 180 readings in 365 days, where I'm compiling with Chicago Public Library and StoryCorps and Young Chicago Authors, voices of a people's history archive that will live in perpetuity, where we could have then the stories of people who live in this moment and who have also been documenters of this moment to really record what it's been like to be in Chicago for real, and not what the tourist board will have people in China know.
So you look back and you dig through the crates, if you will, of history.
That's good.
Thank you very much. But that's different from what you do in terms of the present and the future, because it feels like the teaching is more of looking ahead. You talk about how you have to appreciate the new perspective and things of that nature. Are you hopeful of the future in this work with the youth that you do?
Yeah, also just look how can you not be, but also just look around Chicago right now. And that's Studs Terkel talked about, it being a Chicagoan and understanding the city. You also have, Chicago has a Janus head. You look one way and it's the most beautiful city on the planet. You look another way and it's also the most brutal. But I think also if you see what young people have done historically, this is also the home of House, right? And so what was House, right? And I tell some of the stories in the book about House. House is a space that was carved out by young, queer, Black, and Latinx men to have a safe space for their bodies to move. Eventually, they invited other people to the party, as my good homie Boogie McLaren says, who's a House historian and choreographer and dance instructor at the Oton School of Folk Music. She says that House practices a notion of radical inclusivity, that regardless of who you are, regardless of the condition of your body, if you want to get down in the cultural space of house, you can. And to me, that is the vision of the city of the future. Not the vision of, the president, and not the vision of the mayor, and not the vision of most of the aldermen, but the vision of the people. And I believe in the power of the people. I believe that this is our city. It's our city ultimately to unleash our radical imagination into the civic sphere and make it what it will be. And what it will be, hopefully, moving forward, is a city where we have, greater egalitarianness, greater fairness across zip code. Where if you are born into a particular neighborhood, it is not the trap, literally and figuratively. But you will also have a right to health care, you will have a right to a quality public education, and that it's our space, and it's our time, and it's our duty to do so as Chicagoans. If we really love this city, if we moved here from Buffalo, if we moved here from wherever the fuck, and we're going to live here, then it's our duty to make it a better and more just and equitable and fair space for all bodies. And I believe that.
You're a cool dude. I like this guy. You mentioned the civic sphere. Where is it? Because I've been looking, and I've looked at the maps, and I've been reading sometimes. Where is it? The civic sphere. I really like the sound of it. It sounds really great. Cool. Yeah. Sounds like, radical inclusion, and everyone has a voice, and, it's very democratic. Can you point me in the direction I take the blue line? Like, what am I doing?
Well, you actually helped to create it.
Okay,
no, you do.
I'm not fishing here.
No, I know. But
Go on.
But look, even I mean, what you put on for good folk, and you bring people together. And I think one of the great things about Chicago is the theater community and the storefront theater community, right? And so you could go on. How many storefront theater? There's like 200 plus.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Right?
There's a lot.
And that has everything to do then with people turning their backs, I think, on some of on turning their backs on the center and be like, we don't need a Broadway, because we don't. We need each other, right? And we need each other in community. And so I think that part of what the storefront community theater project has been in the city is because we want to see and hear ourselves reflected in that space of the civic sphere. That if we only look at dominant sources of media and we only see regurgitated, problematized white supremacist notions and patriarchal notions and homophobic notions and transphobic notions about what it means to be a person in this moment, then we have to create a different narrative. And
Break
to me,
narrative.
that's the civic sphere that I think we are creating and then also challenging.
So it's not a physical place, it's a place within ourselves.
And it's a physical space.
Okay,
Yeah,
no,
and
all right,
a
it's
physical
both.
space.
It's both.
Yeah. That like so our so we're but that was cute though. So our organizing principle, a lot of the Obama is this. So we organize in schools and community centers because that's where the people are. And what we try to do is create these micro guerrilla sanctuaries across the city in every neighborhood and build a culture where people could hear one another, and then bring those myriad of small armies into a center space in the city, downtown, where they could also build and see one another. But the strength of the movement doesn't come from the center. It comes from the masses at the periphery. And so if they're going to build, we don't, like for our work that we're doing, we don't need a civic opera house. We don't need like a galvanized, like white columned center. If they're going to build the center, then we need to be, quicker. We need to be guerrilla-esque. And I think that the organizing of the civic space then is in like block to block, neighborhood to neighborhood. We need to have safe spaces where young people could go to be themselves without apology and without walking through a metal detector. And they need then to be on the block, and then that conversation needs to go all city. And so it is yes, a space that exists within us. And
you can have that for free.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's no problem.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Next book, I'm just...
Yeah.
I'll write the
civic
forward.
space within me.
It's got a nice ring to it, man.
Yeah, will not
It'd be a great hashtag.
Yeah.
It's a fake metal detector, by the way.
I know. No, I know. And, yeah, but that's why it's a, yeah.
This, and I mean, so this continues. We got to wrap up, but
Yeah.
tomorrow night, Louder Than a Prom, which is just seems like another example of you empowering the youth, giving them a chance to express themselves. Can you tell us a little bit about it and where people can learn more about LTAP?
Yeah, youngchicagoauthors.org, you know, and so Louder Than a Prom is our first ever year of doing an alternative prom. You know, the folks were like, hey, I don't really feel comfortable going to my prom, and it's too expensive, and also I can't bring like my girlfriend there, you know, because I also identify as a girl. And so we're like, okay, well, what do you want to do? They're like, you
Make
throw a
one.
prom. I'm like, damn, okay, all right, cool, what should we call it? They're like, I don't know, duh, Louder Than a Prom. I'm like, that's hot, let's go. And so, yeah, so it's tomorrow night at the Concord Music Hall. It's our first ever. You know, Darren Alexis is performing, Matt Muse is performing, Rick Wilson's performing.
Nice.
The Happiness Club will be out there dancing. DJ Cashera, we're partnering with Party Noir. So Ray Chardonnay is also DJing. Shantae Linwood is DJing. It's going to be like a very turnt party for young people. So I like have to go and just be like, well, I'm getting there late because I'm also giving the commencement tomorrow at UIC, which is hilarious. I know, I'm nervous. I mean, I'm not nervous. I'm disappointed that they aren't giving me an honorary doctorate. But afterwards, I go to Louder Than a Prom, and I just got to be like, all right, y'all, please leave room for Jesus. Do you know what I mean? That's
The Holy Spirit is present.
Yes.
You know, this is work that you continue to do not only here in Chicago, but all around the country, all year round. You know, you're a great booster of the city. You're a smart dude, and I can't thank you enough for joining us here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The book, again, A People's History of Chicago, written and devised by Kevin Coval. Kevin Coval, everybody. So, get in here, you big lug. Kevin Coval. Still got another book to give away, I'm just saying. But before I do, we're going to welcome up Mike Heldeville one more time.